When preparing for a hike, using gear list in Excel or using tools like laddergear.com for having control over the weight and to see to it you remember packing everything you planned for is common. What is not so common is to compare your list against another list that have saved a lot of lives already and that could literally prevent your own death. The one I'm talking about is the 10 essentials of hiking. A list not very common here in Sweden and perhaps maybe more used in the US and the UK, I think, but this list is the focus for today, where I will go through all 10 and give you my honest opinion about what to bring in each category. So if you want to stay alive on your hikes, stay tuned. The 10 Essentials has been around about 50 years now, but still it is new to a lot of hikers. But I believe it to be a good list to check if you have everything you need to stay alive in case of unexpected events and emergencies. So without further ado, here are the 10 Essentials. Our number one is navigation. Paper maps and a compass is probably what you first think about when it comes to navigation. But according to me, this is not the best way to go, because not everybody has the knowledge how to use a compass, and not everybody is interested in to learn that. So a phone and a watch as a tool for navigation is the better choice. On the phone there's a ton of apps to help you out, to both see your location and to plan your trips, to give you necessary feedback if you deviate from the route. I use my iPhone and an app called Topo GPS to plan my routes and then export them to my watch. That way I will have multiple ways of navigation, and if my phone breaks, I will still have my watch, and vice versa. For maximum safety, I also recommend adding some sort of satellite messenger or SOS device, like the Garmin InReach, for when there's no cell phone reception and being able to call for help in case of emergencies, or just let your loved ones know that you're okay. But sure, or electronics can break or you can run out of battery, so bringing paper maps and a compass as a backup is a good idea. Just see to it that you have the necessary knowledge how to use them. And if you're going the more convenient way of using a phone, watches or GPS devices, see to it also bring an extra power bank or two to be able to charge them when necessary. Our number two is sun protection. And here we're talking about sunglasses, sunscreen and sun protective clothes, like sungloves, a hat and sun hoodies, and of course an umbrella in these reflective materials. All of these are a good way to protect yourself from the sun, and an umbrella could be especially good when it is difficult to find shade during the days. What you bring is of course much depending on when and where you hike, like if hiking in the desert or locations more exposed to the sun, you might want to bring all of the above. But be sure to take this seriously and bring what's needed. You don't want to end up getting heat stroke or, in the end, skin cancer. Our number three is insulation. Out hiking you need to cope with the elements, and just as important it is to protect yourself from the sun is to protect yourself from the cold and the wet, and have the ability or possibility staying warm. This is true for day hikes as well as for overnight trips and longer hikes, and being able to cope with all the expected and unexpected temperatures and weather for the location and season is important. Always bring a base layer and use the layering principle, so if it is colder then add layers, and if it is warmer, remove the layers. A fleece, a puffy jacket, a beanie, gloves and rain gear and your sleeping bag or quilt are essentials for keeping you warm during the days and the nights. Staying dry is key for being able to stay warm, so therefore see to it that you also protect the layers that you're not using inside your backpack from getting wet by using liners or dry bags. Our number four is illumination. And sure, you can use your phone as a flashlight, but I would also recommend you bringing at least one additional light source. And that is especially true if you also use your phone for navigation, because that drains a lot of battery. I prefer and recommend a headlamp, because a headlamp can be used as a lantern, a flashlight, or for hiking in the dark if it takes a little bit longer than expected, or if something happens along the way and you need to find your way back in the dark to camp or back to your car. I always bring a headlamp on my hike, the Nightcore NE25, and sometimes also a lantern on my hikes, and so should you. The number 5 is a first aid kit. And I'm not only talking about medical supplies here, but also first aid for your gear. Bring a good and healthy first aid kit for wounds and smaller injuries, and see to it you know how to use them. And for more serious injuries, an SOS device will be super important for you to have the ability to be evacuated. For the gear first aid kit, I recommend bringing stuff to be able to fix a leak in your sleeping pad, or a small rip in your tent, or some duct tape just to be able to fix a broken tent pole. I know a lot of people also bring in dental floss and a needle to be able to fix smaller damages on the shoes and the gear. I don't do that, but why not? I believe it to be a good idea and might come in handy and doesn't weigh much. The number 6 is fire. Some say it is just necessary to bring a stove and that will cover for your needs on a hike, but I don't agree. We all know that a stove can break, or just that your igniter breaks, and then it is a good idea to have a lighter to be able to fire up that stove. Bringing a lighter as a backup for your igniter, or for the possibility to start a fire, is a must, in my opinion, together with some fire starters. If it is a bit wet, starting a fire is a little bit more challenging than most people think, and a fire starter makes it a lot easier. So see to it that you have the necessary tools and the knowledge how to use them for being able to start a fire to cook, or just for staying warm when the weather turns a little bit colder than expected. Our number 7 is repair kits and tools. And some say that you need to bring screwdrivers, multi-tools, knives and whatnot, but for me this area is already covered by the gear first aid kit. I normally only bring as a tool a scissor and sometimes also a small knife. But it also depends on what gear you have and what kind of hike you're doing, so adapt and bring the essentials needed to be able to fix minor damages on your gear. Our number 8 is nutrition and extra food, but this is wrong, in my opinion. No need for extra food unless you really are far away from any type of civilization. I mean, just take a look at these survival rule of threes. 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without a shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. It is clear that food is not a top priority. Bring the food needed for the hike ahead and maybe 1 or 2 bars extra. That's all you need, really. The number 9 essential, hydration, is way more important than food, and still you see a lot of people rather bringing extra food than the possibility to pure water on the trail. You have water purification tablets, UV pens and different kinds of water filtration kits and whatnot. So there's really no excuse not bringing it. Sometimes you need to carry a full day of water, but most of the time there's no real reason, and bringing a filter is preferable. And do plan ahead by looking at the maps where you're hiking and see where the water sources is located, and also do some research in advance to see if they are reliable or not, because these things tend to differ from season to season and from year to year. The final number 10 is a shelter. For us hikers spending several days on the trail, this is taken care of with our tent, hammock, tarp or a bivvy. But it can also be smaller stuff like a space blanket. I have one here, they are really small, or a really big trash bag for being able to improvise a shelter should you need to. This could feel like a little bit of an overkill for many hikes when you're not planning to stay overnight, but as a safety measure I believe it's a good idea. A space blanket or a tarp or a trash bag doesn't cost much, doesn't weigh much and doesn't take up much space in your backpack, and could really come in handy if you need to make an emergency shelter and spending 1 night or 2 unplanned in nature. This was the 10 essentials, and if you ask me, all of them should be covered by the gear that you bring. This for being able to stay alive in case of emergencies or when things don't go according to plan. If you follow these recommendations, I would say your chance of surviving the unexpected is much higher. Don't skimp on safety. Now I hope you have enjoyed today's episode and that I could deliver what was promised in the thumbnail. If not, or if you have anything to add, just leave a comment and I will come back to you as soon as I can. But for now, this is it. And if you liked today's episode, take a look at these 2 recommendations on my other videos. Also do hit like, subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss out on any future content. I hope to see you again next week, but for now, take care, safe hiking and bye bye.